Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Channels Television celebrating 21 years of professional broadcasting. This is the news at 10. Here's a reminder of our major stories tonight. 4 companies plead guilty to laundering $15.6 million allegedly belonging to the former First Lady, Mrs. Patience Jonathan. UK State Prosecution Agency upholds conviction of former Delta State Governor James Buhari despite evidence of bribery against a British police officer. The President prescribes out-of-the-box thinking towards engaging the private sector in reviving the economy. And Australian investigators confirm large item of debris discovered off Tanzania's coast belongs to missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. Just to quickly remind you that all our top stories are on our website, channelstv.com, and on youtube.com/channelsweb. And do log on to m.channelstv.com to view us live on your mobile device. You can also download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows phones from their respective stores. Besides the news and updates, the Channels TV app has an eyewitness feature. We encourage you to use it to share those pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the eyewitness menu and follow the instructions. We're staying with our lead story, and that's the federal government's efforts to get the economy out of recession and just looking at the economy generally. To discuss all that, I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by an economist and the Chief Executive Officer of Quest Advisory Services, Mr. Bayo Rotimi. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10.
Always a pleasure.
Big question is, what next and how soon? I mean, you see the president there asking us all to think out of the box. So what's your out of the box suggestion? Let's begin with that.
Well, first things first, I think the retreat was timely. One day, maybe I would have wanted a bit more than a day. But I think it's always important for all the critical stakeholders to come, have a sit down, review, assess, and come up with new strategies. So what is my out-of-the-box solution? I think the problems and the challenges we faced as a nation, they are not new. The solutions also are not difficult or far-fetched. Where we have always struggled is the commitment towards implementation. So I like the fact that Mr. President seems to be tending towards the private sector, seeing the value that they create and how they can support the implementation of his policies. So out of the box for government for this president is increased private sector participation. Out of the box for me as a private sector person, I'm looking at government to do things radically different. So if we say we have an objective to increase tax revenues, I will say to government, and out of the box thinking could be, rather than continue to tax our struggling SMEs, why don't you profile or put forward a radical solution? Say to them, I will give you a tax holiday for 3 to 5 years. What will happen invariably is this. Today they say we have a minimum of 17 million SMEs in Nigeria. But if you go to the Corporate Affairs Commission, we don't have up to 2 billion companies registered. So it means that a lot of these companies are operating under the radar. So first and foremost, you have a problem reaching them and taxing them. So the few that are showing up are being overtaxed. So why doesn't government come? Out-of-box solution for me, offer a 3 to 5 year tax holiday for SMEs and see how quickly we will ramp up the registration of SMEs, and they will just be there for free of charge for 3 to 5 years. After that, they become a viable taxable group. So
that's one suggestion. We've also seen that this private sector participation call is not new either.
Correct.
Countless conferences, summits, national, regional, international, and all these suggestions come up. But then we don't hear anything after that. So I don't know, where are we going with it?
Well, like I said earlier, there has been historically a gap between policy articulation and implementation. Nigerians are extremely brilliant people. Over the last 30, 40, 50 years, we've come up with significant policies and plans and agendas and visioning and all of that. Where we have always struggled has been the implementation. And implementation revolves around political will. There has to be the political will to do the right things. So we talk about privatization, which is not new. We talk about public-private partnerships, which is not new. But there are numerous instances when the public sector counterparty in these contracts default on their obligations. So those are some of the issues. So government has to actually walk the talk and back up whatever contract that they get into with the private sector.
And in terms of how long it's going to take us to get out of this, some experts have said 12 to 18 months. We've heard longer from different experts. How long do you think it's going to take us now?
My view, if we do the right thing, if there is proper implementation of the various policy solutions that have been articulated, I reckon in 12 to 18 months we should start to see some significant turnaround.
And for those macro businesses that we were speaking about, SMEs initially, the smaller ones, the average man on the street,
correct.
What would you, I don't know, things are shutting down, I don't know, what would you suggest for businesses like that?
I will say that one of the greatest challenges those businesses face is the infrastructural constraints, difficulties in accessing financing, and an environment that really doesn't encourage them. So I will say that government has certain policies. The CBN has created financial solutions for this target group. I will say yet again, let us ease or make the process through which these SMEs can access these facilities a lot easier. Let us look for ways of bringing them together. Let us establish SME hubs all over the country so that they can share services, they can share infrastructure, bring down their unit cost. And if government agrees to this tax incentive we're talking about, it means that effectively 32% which would have gone into taxation can actually be plowed back into the business and hopefully help them to gain some traction.
All right, CEO, Quest Advisory Services, Mr. Bayo Rotimi, thanks for sharing your thoughts on the news at 10 tonight. Let's quickly cross over now to Abuja. Here's Ibrahim Adra. Hey, Ibrahim.
Well, many thanks, Ejoma, for joining us here in the nation's capital. The president has been speaking. President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration will support a constitutional amendment to free local governments from the stranglehold of states and better the lot of Nigerians at the community level. The president, who was speaking when he received the leadership of the Association of Local Governments in Nigeria in Abuja, said a constitutional amendment is urgently required to clearly define the relationship among the three tiers of government. He said, quote, "The relationship between the three tiers of government is not a very nice one, especially that between the local government and the states. The states feel like they own the local government if they are of the same party. It is worse if they are not. This is a very serious constitutional problem, and unless there is absolute clarity and transparency, the relationship will continue to be exploited against the interest of ordinary people of the country." End of quote. President Buhari advised the Algon executives to hold consultations with their people and lawyers with a view to presenting a bill that will seek a constitutional amendment to free the councils from the stranglehold of states. Now, the flood that ravaged many homes and property in Osogbo, the Osun state capital, may have subsided, but its victims are still counting their losses. Although commercial activities have picked up in some parts of the affected areas, environmental experts say there is need for the government to come up with sustainable strategies to forestall a recurrence. Now I'm being joined by Mr. Moses Beckley, who is the Director General of the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, to take a look at the spate of rainfall that's been witnessed in some parts of the country and how to deal with it. Mr. Beckley, thank you for joining us on the news.
Thank you for having me again.
Now, very early in the year, NIMET had predicted that some states, 14 specifically, are prone to flood this year. Now, many of the affected states, however, are saying the amount of rain they are having at the moment is beyond their imagination. Now, is this the case, or is it just a case of these states not taking NIMET's warning seriously in the first place?
Yeah, indeed. NIMET came out with a seasonal rainfall prediction for the year, sometime in March, predicting that there will be some above normal rainfall to normal in some parts of the country. And the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency took it from there because it has a mandate to monitor the rivers and also give them hydrological forecast. And on the 25th of July, the agency, that is Hydrological Service Agency, came up with some predictions simulating the rainfall parameter, as well as the geomorphological, the vegetation, and also the other historical data, and predicted that there would be at least 34 states that will be prone to flood. I'm talking about that will have potential for high flood risk. So, and so far, out of these 34, 30 states have been affected. It's not a charity news. In fact, the essence of this prediction is so that the people can respond positively by doing the needful, respecting the part of the water, and also making sure that they take as much as they can at this time, because this water will not continue all year round, and time will come when there will be deficit of this water. So it's important that they save as much as they can and allow excess of it to flow freely right into the Gulf of Guinea.
Mr. Beckley, but for now, these rains are falling and they have continued to leave massive flood, and we've seen destruction also in its path. Now, how best do you think residents of the affected areas can best handle the impact of these heavy rains?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, they have to move away from where you have this volume of water, and then make sure that the drainage systems are well cleared. And where they don't have any drainage system, they should be constructed so that they will adequately convey this water. It's also important to state here that for those who are close to the river banks, of course, the federal government, the state, they all have roles to play. We are aware of the heavily silted river channels, you know, because those who are staying very close to the floodplains could also be affected should there be torrential rains, and these would move inland and could affect them. So they have to move upland so that their lives and properties can be safe.
For now, though, the rains are still with us. I mean, there are no signs of it abating in any way. But if this trend continues, do you think we have the capacity to deal with the consequences?
Well, by and large, I think that we, because of the awareness that is already around, yes, we can compare the rains that we've had to that of 2012. But because even as I speak with you now, it's rising along the Benue axis, yes, but then the impact has not been as terrible as we had this time 2012. However, with this volume of water and the high rain that is coming down, I think we can't stop the rains. All we need to do by way of handling is to respect the flow and the paths of the water courses, and so just allow the water to flow freely. Take as much as you can, and we'll be safe.
The question to ask at this point is, agencies like yours, NIMET, and of course other government agencies, what are you doing to prepare government as well as citizens, you know, to avert crises of this nature in the future? You know, whether it is related to weather control that are beyond our control, like we're saying now.
Yeah, you see, one thing is that, like a platform like this, we have been sensitizing the government, advising the government, and as well as the people, you know, what to do and what not to do. And so if these things are heeded to, if they take this advice, then of course we'll be the better for it.
All right, we've got to let it here. I've been speaking with Director General of Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Mr. Moses Beckley. Thank you for coming on the news.
Thank you for having me again.
Still ahead on the news at 10. Oil prices rise by 2%, ending a two-day slide amid concerns of more crude supply from Nigeria and Libya. At some business news. Stay with us.